Former Jeweled Cross owner Jim Brennan is well known in his hometown, his alma maters, and religious circles throughout the world. The Monsignor Coyle High School and University of Notre Dame graduate and father of five is truly a North Attleboro legend. Jim Brennan, when you look in the dictionary under the word townie, Jim Brennan's picture would be there. Born and raised in North Attleboro?
Well, I was born in Attleboro, and my wife is from North Attleboro, and we came out of the service after college and married right after college, and moved to Plainville for 5 years, and then moved to North Attleboro. So I guess I'm a North Attleboro native from 1961.
Well, most people think of Jim Brennan as a townie, that is for sure. So you were born in Attleboro. Where did you go to elementary school?
I went to Farmers in Willett.
Oh.
And then off on a bus to Coyle.
So Coyle was not Coyle Cassidy back then. It was Monsignor Coyle High School.
Boys only.
Boys only.
Yeah.
That must have been not fun.
Well, we're jealous of the ones that came after us.
When they became merged with Cassidy High School, Bishop Cassidy High School, to become Coyle and Cassidy High School. I certainly know very well where you attended college. South Bend, Indiana.
That's right.
The University of Notre Dame. At what point in high school did you know you wanted to attend Notre Dame?
Well, in high school, we had Holy Cross Brothers. And the Holy Cross Brothers are an offshoot of the Holy Cross Fathers. So the Holy Cross Brothers at Coyle cherry-picked the guys that they wanted to recommend, because a lot of us applied, but the ones they recommended got in. So I was lucky, I got in, and one of my best friends didn't get in. But so my father said, well, if you're going to Notre Dame, you got to be a doctor. So I enrolled in pre-med, and then biology and science were not in the same mix. So after a year, I moved to a business course and was very happy in it.
How was the football team back then?
The football team was good then, but we got a lot of, never had a drink until I was a senior at 21. My wife said, you made up for it. Anyway, I used to get a lot of free beers from my friends because the coach in those days was Terry Brennan, a namesake. Oh. Terry was quite a famous name at Notre Dame because he ran an opening kickoff back in the 40s against Army. Then he went on to become a high school coach in the Chicago area, and they tapped him for the Notre Dame job. And I had the pleasure about 5 years ago, of introducing him at our 50th reunion. He was sitting at the head table, of course, and he started out by saying, "This is not my brother." A wonderful person. He's well into his 80s now and in great shape. So that's, Notre Dame was, so we came to a mutual agreement. My chemistry professor, he says, if you get a 70 in the final, I'll give you a 70 for a mark, if you promise you won't be a doctor.
So you got the 70?
I got the 70, and I went on to, well, actually they assign rooms for your sophomore year based on your first semester freshman year average. And actually, I was not even qualified to be in South Bend.
Wow.
So I lived off campus for about half a year, then moved on, and it was my sophomore year, and I had the distinction of living next door to a famous Notre Dame name, which everybody remembers, Paul Hornung.
Oh, yes.
And Paul Hornung was a Notre Dame great and won the Heisman Trophy. I guess that would be in 57 or 58, or maybe 59.
Now, he was known as a party guy after college, right?
Yeah,
how about in college?
They used to call him, he was in the Rose Bowl parade, he was the king of the parade. He still lives down in Tennessee, someplace. One of our mutual friends sees him regularly, and he was asked to speak at one of our mutual friends' Notre Dame functions. And he said, well, you'll have to pay me now, he said, or else, he says, I don't do these things for nothing anymore, I can't afford to. So he's quite a likable man, though.
You have remained very involved with your alma mater. A lot of it was through your business, but more so than the average person.
Well, you know, they became a customer too, the bookstore, for my products. So they eventually sold the rights to the buying of the bookstore to a Chicago outfit that does it professionally for bookstores. But I can remember calling on them 5 years after I graduated, and ran into the likes of Chris Servant, who was a student there at the time. And he talks about it today every time I'm in his audience with him, about taking him out to dinner in South Bend. But I had a lot of, right in North Attleboro area here, there's probably Dale Galasso, the lawyer.
Dale Galasso, a neighbor of mine, he's Notre Dame.
And Marshall Riley from Attleboro, who was quite an athletic figure. And both those fellows, by the way, went on to go in the Marine Corps, which I did, and through the Officers Candidate Program at Notre Dame. Unfortunately for them, they were 5 years after me, and they both got wounded or saw a lot of action there. I was pretty lucky. I beat the war.
You were lucky. Tim Sullivan, current president of Bishop Ian High School, Notre Dame grad.
Yeah.
Certainly a connection between the Catholic high schools in this area.
Oh, big time.
To Notre Dame.
Big time, yeah.
Let's talk, before we talk about Jeweled Cross, and we'll talk about the dedication. You gave a wonderful speech at that dedication a few weeks ago. Let's talk about how you met your beautiful wife.
Well, I was a senior, I guess, in high school at Coyle, and no, excuse me, I was a sophomore or a freshman at Notre Dame, and it came back for the summer, and I used to work at Jeweled Cross. Well, Jeweled Cross was located on South Washington Street, and my cousin Ann Levis had a bunch of friends that lived. She was from North Attleboro. Had a bunch of friends in North Attleboro, including Priscilla's sister Joan Wright, and eventually I got fixed up with Priscilla, and we started dating the beginning of my freshman year at Notre Dame, and we got engaged in my sophomore year and got married a week after we graduated.
So you were engaged as a sophomore?
In college.
In college?
Yeah, and I borrowed the money from her father for the ring.
Did you really?
But she doesn't know that, so maybe we'll edit that out.
Yeah, that's not going to happen, Jim. The cat is out of the bag, that's for sure. Oh, that's an amazing story. So you were out in South Bend. Where was she?
She went to Marymount in Arlington, Virginia. She was a class of 55 in North Attleboro, so she had a year in by the time I started college, and she went back.
So now you're saying she's older than you? Well, you're in big trouble.
Just a wee bit. But she went back and she graduated, and she was quite beautiful. She still is. But she graduated and was the Queen of the May at Marymount, which was quite an honor for a combination of beauty, piety, etc. So we got married in June 14th, Flag Day, which I tell her that's still in honor of us. We're putting all those flags out all over town.
It's in honor of her putting up with you all these years.
Yeah. So she has 3 sisters who are all married locally or pretty locally.
Now one of them is a Bray, right?
Ronnie Bray, the lawyer, his wife, he married the oldest, Helen. And then Lorraine, the second girl in their family, married Bob Peeney. His family ran the Lafayette House.
Oh, yes.
And then the third one, Priscilla's the youngest. The third one, Joan, married a dentist from Cranston, Rhode Island, Dr. Gargani.
That's incredible because Noelle Peeney, I went to high school with, class of 77 at Fian. Your daughter, Colleen, I went to high school with, class of 77 at Fian. And Elliot Bray also went to Bishop Fian as a friend of mine as well. Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So, the oldest is Colleen? No?
Colleen and then Jay, or James, Patricia, Diamond, Aaron Byer, and Katie Augusto. And we've got 10 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren. My son-in-law is Fernando. He travels probably 3.5 weeks per month.
Oh.
All over the world. I mean, South America, Japan, England, Ireland, Portugal, everywhere. He's a great speaker. He's bilingual. He was born in Cuba, and he speaks perfect English and perfect Spanish, and a lot of Spanish dialects. So he's very well sought after for speaking. And I just call up and I'll say to Colleen, "Oh, where's Fernando?" He'll take a flight out on a Friday morning or Friday night, speak in England on Saturday morning, and fly back Saturday night. I mean, this is
wow,
beyond my ability at this time.
Now, Jay, of course, I remember, was quite a football player at Bishop Feian High School. I want to say he was number 24 at Bishop Feian.
You're a good memory.
I'm good with numbers. Names I'm terrible with, but 24. Jay, I had played golf with a number of times. I've run into
He's a good athlete
from time to time. So Jay is married. I do know that.
He's married. And he's got 2 kids. One of them graduated from New England Tech, and the other one is presently the youngest one. The girl is at Johnson & Wales.
All right. And daughter number 2, child number 3. I told you I was terrible with names.
Patricia Diamond.
Okay. Yes.
She's got 2, a girl and a boy. They both graduated from Salve Regina, I believe. No, not Salve Regina. In Boston, next to Boston College. Emmanuel.
Okay.
Emmanuel College. I used to know the birth dates, but of course you lose something as you get a little older.
Well, there's so many more of them now with all the grandchildren.
Yeah, well, Vic's got 2 children by his first marriage, and Vic and Katie, and then they've got 1 of their own. The 2 oldest are the ones that have the children. Let's see, Vic's son, Justin, just had his 2nd child, and his daughter, Lisa, who married an Irish lad right from Dublin, Ross O'Neill. And Ross O'Neill, they have a new baby born on March 16th. They couldn't wait a day.
Oh. So daughter number 3, child number 4?
Child number 4 is Erin Byer. She went to hairdressing school, and she married Gary, and Gary's quite a builder. His career started in the jewelry business. He imported jewelry and designed jewelry for Swank as a young man, started importing it, and then he started off on his own, selling jewelry to a company out of Texas, and he'd buy the jewelry in China and resell it in Texas. But he always had a knack for building. So he bought a house on South Washington Street, completely rehabbed it. They've got a cottage up in Vermont, which he's rehabbed, and they've got 1 boy, and he was a good athlete at Feian, Derek Byer.
I remember Derek.
Yeah,
he was one heck of an athlete. Called his games.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, absolutely. And then daughter number 4, child number 5, is that Kate?
That's Katie.
Yeah, who you live in a beautiful in-law apartment.
Was so fortunate because, from having to pay for a lot of things that I couldn't do myself anymore, they do. I mean, they're out here. Yesterday they emptied their wading pool, and you'd think most people would just pick up the wading pool and dump it. They bucketed every drop of water in that pool and fed all these plants out here. So they're real conscious, and he loves it. He's got a knack for it, and Katie's right along with him. It's wonderful.
Now, she is a teacher at Southeastern Regional, and he's a teacher at Dighton Road.
Dighton Road, that's right.
Interesting. No, normally I don't talk about someone's children during this program. We focus on the legends themselves, but if you know Jim Brennan, he is so proud of his family that I thought it was important to talk about them. Let's talk about Jewel Cross. You gave a wonderful speech, as I mentioned, at the dedication of the Jewel Crossing Apartments. The company was founded by your grandfather
in 1923, or prior to that. My grandfather, who was an Irish immigrant, he was born in 1887 or 67, I'm not sure. He made a cross for a nun in a convent in Pennsylvania who had befriended the family that lost a relative in World War I. And the cross I had with me, in fact, it's in my car now. It was set with 1,300 rhinestones, and my grandfather was in the jewelry business at the time in Providence. He gave it to the nun with an inscription on the back to Sister Mary Catherine Ennis, Convent of the Good Shepherd, from James Brennan. The nun, in those days, the funeral directors would have a crucifix behind the casket with two candles, a candle on each end of the casket. And today they have usually an electric candle and a crucifix. Well, this crucifix with the candles at the end of the casket reflecting on the jewels on the front of the stones that he hand set in the front of the crucifix. The funeral director just loved it. And he said, I gotta have one for my funeral home. And that snowballed into my grandfather and father making them on the kitchen table on Emory Street in Attleboro and knocking on doors and selling them to funeral directors. So our first thrust was really making crucifixes, or their first thrust was making crucifixes for the funeral trade. As the years went on, we made crucifixes and other related religious goods for not only the funeral trade, but the store trade. The first communion gifts, confirmation gifts, wedding gifts. Even during all that time, though, the funeral part of the business, we went from selling equipment, which the original crucifix was, to a giveaway crucifix that would be put in the lid of a casket and given to the family after the funeral. We were selling about $1 million a year. We sold millions of these crucifixes, millions and millions of them. And that's what we became really known for. My tenure in the company was, I tell the story when I get out of the service. My father-in-law, Priscilla's father, ran the Chevrolet Oldsmobile dealership where your building is today, the TV.
93 South Washington Street.
And my father was at 117 South Washington Street. They both offered me jobs. So I went with my father, and there was no ill feeling.
Now, was your grandfather was James? Was your dad James?
No, my dad was Raymond.
Raymond. So you're named after your grandfather?
After my grandfather.
Interesting. So at what age did you start there? I mean, in high school, and so you must have been in the building helping.
Well, I graduated
Free
from
labor,
college when I was 21. So I started, and I went in the service for almost 3 years. So I was 24 when I started Jewel Cross, and I was there for 45 years. You're adding?
For 45 years. Okay, yeah, my math's not that good, but...
Well, they tell you the story. My father, before me, used to get to park underneath the portico at Jewel Cross building. And after he passed and I became the moving force there, that became my parking space. And I think for about 40 years, say 6.5 times a week, times 40 years, comes up to 12 or 13,000 days I parked under that arch.
Wow.
I'd like to have about 20,000 and 10,000 of those back.
How much did the business evolve over the years? It was literally named Jeweled Cross because the first item
was
jeweled, and it was a jeweled cross. How much did it change? You mentioned some of the other products you went into, selling to places like the bookstore at Notre Dame, the bookstore at La Salette Shrine. I've seen your work there over the years.
Well, we acquired different companies during the years. For instance, we bought the tools from Antaya Brothers in Attleboro. They were good friends. And they had tools for patron saint metals, so sterling silver and gold fill, pewter, etc. So we started in that in the late 60s, and that became a very important part of our production, religious metals and stampings and whatnot. And we did our own electroplating, and plus we did our own casting. So casting is a very complicated operation. You can cast pot metal, which is nothing but linotype from the old Providence Journal, Attleboro Sun, or the fine metal is pewter, which is mostly tin, and you can actually eat off pewter. So we were manufacturing fine pewter gifts. And they're still doing some of that. The company was sold by my son and son-in-law to a young lady or lady from Rhode Island who operates now out of Woonsocket, Rhode Island. Unfortunately, I think they thought they were buying a jewelry company by the name, and they were buying a religious gift company. But that's neither here nor there. That's their problem, not mine.
No secret that organized religions, not only the Roman Catholic Church, but the Baptist Church, and we do a series with the churches here in North Attleboro, and attendance is down. Religion isn't what it once was. Is that something that you noticed in the business?
We didn't notice it so much because we geared our new products to the general Christian market.
Okay.
So we were selling the Baptist Sunday School Board. We were selling the Episcopal Church and headquarters in Minneapolis, and we were selling people online very early, which today has become a major factor. Plus, I was fortunate enough, I had, with some help, built a real nice sales force. And a sales force, the key to a sales force, if they're manufacturer's rep, is to be the prime line. And even if they might carry 3 or 4 lines, but if you're the fourth to come out of the bag, the buyer is tired and usually broke. So the first to come out of the bag gets the money and the goods. So we had a wonderful sales force, and some people like Clint Meyer from Attleboro, Paul Dean was a local man. Just wonderful people. So we adjusted to the markets as the markets shrank, or shrunk, is that the right word? Anyway, I think that there's still a future for religious goods, but you've got to be, I think, more selective, giving nice religious gifts, not junk. They have an expression, junk for Jesus. Well, I don't want to be in that category. You can buy some nice things in China and whatnot, but we found that some of our importing we did was Italian from the old masters. We had a card company which we reproduced works of art from Renaissance period. We aligned ourselves with Swift and Fisher back in the 60s or 70s. So we went to the same market, but with a different product line. We were going with church-related products, chalices, ciborium, a pyx. You know what a pyx is?
Yes.
A pyx is a layman or a priest will carry communion to the sick or elderly in a pyx. And the tens of thousands of pieces in the market, So the Swift and Fisher factory is located over my left shoulder here. It was. That was sold eventually to Alvedi in Attleboro, and Alvedi operates now in the industrial park right down the street.
Now the building on South Washington Street, which became Jewel Crossing Apartments, how long was the company there?
The company rented that from Commercial Press in 1940. They had moved 4 or 5 times in Attleboro. At the last place they were in Attleboro was at the location that presently is the Sun Chronicle. There was a big factory building in the corner there. And they moved to 117 South Washington Street with Commercial Press. Now, Commercial Press occupied a wing on the right. Lions Advertising had second floor on the right, and Oldham Electric had a basement, and Jewel Cross occupied the rest. When in 1960, my father and his brother bought the building and all the land from Commercial Press. Commercial Press moved to East Street. Lions Advertising built down the Falls, and Oldham moved to another location in North Attleboro. So we expanded into the whole building and built a warehouse in 2001 or 2 in the back for imported goods. So it was sad, but the property, there was 6 acres of land there, and it's prime land for anybody, for the type of development that went in there. They've got a wonderful reputation. The Great Bridge Company, they built the Bliss School Complex across from Sturdy Hospital. It's been nothing but accolades. It looks as nice today as the day they put it up. So we're happy that the town has got something to be proud of.
What did you think when you walked into the actual building where the office is and the community center for the residents to form?
Well, they've done some nice things. They got our old vault, which we inherited somehow. It's a rolling safe. and they had it opened up, and they had a lot of Jewel Cross antiques in there. Well, I said to them, if you'd like to know the combination to that safe, let me know. My father used to have it written on the wall over there, but I see you've taken the wall down. So I remember the combination to this day. And when they went to do something with the safe, they realized that inside the safe door was a canister with tear gas. This was to deter any of the guys with the drills that are gonna rob the safe. So they had to call either the fire or the police or anything and have it degassed.
That's incredible. So when the company was sold and you saw portions of the building being knocked down, were you emotional at all?
Yeah, I took some pictures, and in the meantime, my son has been on a free pulley, so we signed a contract to develop product for a company in Arizona. So we've been busy doing that for the last 2 or 3 years. Plus, that's coming to an end next year, so we're already designing some very different religious goods to market under our own label, which we think will be North Attleboro pewter or Bristol pewter. We're not sure.
Will you ever slow down?
Sure, I've got a plot down here that proves it.
30 years from now, when you use that plot, how do you want people, especially here in the town of North Attleboro, to remember Jim Brennan?
Well, you know, it's funny. There's not a week that goes by that somebody doesn't stop me. Well, a man stopped me last week. He says, I painted the steps of your building 35 years ago. I said, well, they needed another coat. Another woman stopped me at the Chinatown Gardens, went over and gave me a kiss. And she says, I want to thank you. And I said, what for? She said, well, I work for your company, she says, and I never wanted to go through the regular people and get raises. I went right to the front office and asked for a raise. She says, one day I was sick. She says, and you saw me and you said, what's the matter? And she said, I was sick. I said, you took me in your office and I had a couch. So I said, lay down on the couch and we'll get somebody to take care of you. So my secretary came in and said, what's that woman doing on your couch? That was Mikey Bonnie.
That's how rumors get started,
yeah.
You know.
So she was very appreciative. I said, not a week goes by that I don't run into somebody that either worked at Jewel Cross or had some association with it as a salesman or something like that. And that's very rewarding. And I saw one of my close friends, 2 close friends, one of them's a former employee, are now residents of the new Jewel building. And I didn't have a vote when they named it Jewel, Jewel. It should be Jeweled.
Yes.
That's most people don't know the difference. So Henry Ostrander is living there with his wife and my old friend Ray Coogan.
Ray Coogan.
Yeah.
Wow. Certainly will be remembered in 30 years from now,
I hope so.
when you finally use that plot. I was about to talk about our golf game, but we've run out of time. He played his best golf whenever he played against me.
It was a incentive, to beat Peter.
Yeah, but we don't want. We're out of time.
I kind of wonder whether or not you didn't throw those good matches.
Absolutely not. You know me. I'm very competitive. Jim, thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter.
Jim Brennan, truly a North Attleboro legend.
Thank you.